Welcome to Trading Nation. I'm Eric Chemi, joined now by Jack Bouroudjian, a longtime trader and founder of the Universal Compute Exchange. Jack, do you think this recent rally has legs to keep going?
Yeah, this is something that we haven't seen in quite a while. In fact, I'll even go as far as to say we probably haven't seen this in 30 years. You've got the foundation that's been set for what I really call this power rally that could take a few years. Now, remember, it comes in three stages. We've gone through what I call the capitulation stage. That is all that money that was sitting on the sidelines. And then we'll probably see a little bit of a pullback, I guess. Really depends on when, and then that'll be followed by that conviction stage, and that's really what we're expecting next year, and something that could probably take us up dramatically over the course of say 8 to 10 months.
So if you think this is something you haven't seen in so many years, are you max long in your own portfolio right now?
What I am doing is I am fully committed to the market. Remember, over the course of the last year, I have been very, very careful. In fact, I got on CNBC I believe it was October, preaching that I think we had to be a little defensive and be protective in our portfolios. And sure enough, we saw that big downdraft caused primarily by what was happening in crude. Now, all of that is now behind us. Not only are those crude concerns behind us, but now we're looking at a market that has gone from what I call a TINA market to a PEG market. It's a pro-economic growth market. That is exactly what we wanted to see. And more importantly, it's something that's probably going to cause some multiple expansion, and which is what people really don't expect.
When did it shift, though? Because I know it's easy to say, look at the election, that's when it shifted. But in your mind, a week before the election, you can't predict that. So where do you actually see, okay, now I know I can go in and be a buyer, when, like you said a few weeks ago, you were not saying that?
It was when we saw all parts of Congress and the executive office all be on the same page. Once we saw a sweep of Congress, that changed everything. I don't think anybody expected the sweep. The sweep actually triggered something. It triggered what I call that economic momentum. And it also triggered something else. It triggered the death of liberal economic elitism. These are, again, very esoteric types of things to think about, but that's essentially what we saw. And, the market has been suppressed over the course of the last 8 years. Even though we've been seeing these new all-time highs, when you look at it from a valuation standpoint, when you look at it from a multiple standpoint, it's been fairly suppressed. But now you're going to be able to unleash everything that we've been talking about. You're going to get tax reform. You're going to get regulatory reform. You're going to get everything that's been called a prosperity killer out of the way. And with that, of course, comes a run in the market.
I guess I'll just point out, you've got a GOP name badge there, so I know you're happy with the way the sweep went. Obviously, if you've gone the other way, maybe you've got a different view on what's happening. So for, let's say, people that maybe don't have your economic view, maybe they're thinking of it a little differently, they think this is a disappointing outcome of the election, how do they try to get positioned, and if maybe they just don't think this goes with how they think the economy is going to grow?
Well, if you're going to fight history, I can't help you. If you're one of these people that looks at supply side and thinks of capitalism as an evil, which is a philosophy that seemed to develop over the course of the last few years, which is very ironic. I mean, when you think about it, here we are exporting American freestyle capitalism to the world, and yet we at certain times were turning our back on that very thing. So the reality is that now that we have seen that behind us, and hopefully that's really what's happening here. What I would say to my friends that are on the other side of the aisle is they have to embrace this change. Look, it happened when Jimmy Carter lost to Ronald Reagan. We saw that change take place. It was a paradigm shift, and those that didn't embrace that change were left behind. And all I would say to those that aren't embracing this change is there is a danger in being left behind with all of this happening.
All right, so last question, final answer, one number answer. 4 years from now, where's the Dow?
30 to 35,000.
All right.
Which is exactly where my target is 5 years from right now.
Well, there you have it, 30 to 35,000. You heard it here first from Jack Bouroudjian. Thanks for joining us here on Trading Nation.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.